Welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C, the podcast for founders, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and leaders navigating the journey of growth. In each episode, we get into the setbacks, the rebuilds, the pivots, and the lessons learned along the way. These are honest conversations with leaders who face challenges head on and found success in business and in life. I'm your host, Sonia, and let's get started. My guest today is Loïc Potjes. With 25 years of experience as a corporate and scale-up CEO, chairman, and tech investor, Loïc has built, launched, and scaled companies across mature and emerging markets, managing teams up to 4,000 people. His strength is cutting through complexity, helping CEOs identify the real root issue, focus on the 20% that drives results, and rebuild their go-to-market strategy with precision. Hi, Loïc. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hey Sonia, thanks for having me. Super well, thank you.
Awesome. I'm excited to get into this conversation with you. But I want to start with when a CEO comes to you with overwhelm, with too many priorities, flat revenue, and team chaos, what's the first thing you do with them to cut through all the noise?
Yep, great question. To get into the coaching session, what is the one thing that comes to mind? The biggest bottleneck, the biggest crisis, the biggest thing that's going to move the needle? And after throwing that question up, pause, and they go into reflection mode. And they
Mm-hmm.
need that minute to kind of quieten the noise, the hamster wheel, the craziness, and get to the actually, what is that one thing? And then it's wording it, and then it's the space where we don't get to solve the world in an hour, but where we get to work on that one topic that's going to help them get clarity, and then the next two or three actionable steps, and then go and make a change.
Do you find that leaders have sometimes a hard time finding that one thing?
Actually, not.
No?
No,
Okay.
I find that a lot of them, they certainly need a bit of a time of reflection. Then you might have a couple of topics coming to mind, and then they self-reflect, and you might throw another couple of questions, such as, okay, if one thing had to change this week and you found it super valuable, what would be that? If there's one key bottleneck, what is that? Like, what comes to mind? And sometimes you poke a couple of questions, but they certainly come to, if at all, they've got too many topics. And
Mm.
then, yeah, what feels like the most urgent or important? What's the one that's really going to resonate with you? What's the one where you're stuck? So yeah, there's often ample working material coming up.
I'm curious, what's the pattern you see that tells you that they are part of the chaos?
It's busyness. It's sometimes I make them open their schedule online, say, well, hang on a minute, show me
Mm.
your schedule. Um, and then you see the craziness. That's a great, because not everything is in the schedule. So if it looks crazy enough, you think, okay, well, if I put all the rest on top, the coffee machine chats, the quick calls, the things that I can, like, dude, stop. Okay,
Hmm.
so, and then make them do the hit list and the shit list. So, which is what is the stuff you should stop doing, and what are the one or two or three things you should stop doing this week, and what is the one or two things that you should start doing more of
Mm.
actually in the midst of that craziness, because that's the stuff that moves the needle. But in order to do that, what do you need to let go of? And then sometimes, because that sounds like time management techniques, which is a bit shallow and all of that, but then sometimes you need to dig deeper to say, hang on, I had a CEO, a super bright lady, super, but then two character trait, personality traits that was making her sink, which was a need for granularity and need
Mm.
for control. And she came saying, well, I need time management. And I said, well, maybe you do, but if you need time management, Google it. It's all the perfect solutions are there. But so what makes you not do the stuff you would? And so we dig a bit deeper. And then she realizes that actually she's sacrificing the quality time with her kids for the
Hmm.
wrong reasons. So essentially the point is by entertaining her craving for control and granularity, it was an extremely heavy price to pay.
Mm,
And once that realization settles in, then
yeah.
where to from here? What is actually meaningless to control? What doesn't actually move the needle? Okay, can you let go of that? Okay, I think I can. But now there's a carrot to say, well, if I do that reasonably well, then I can get to potentially what's truly meaningful to me, which is working on the
Mm-hmm.
business and the next strategy and the next partnership and the next acquisition and whatever it is. And so it's a work of substance more
Yeah.
than just technique or tools.
But like for people who feel like they have to have all these things on their plate, they don't know how to, you know, organizing your time sounds easy, but they actually don't know how to do it. And I relate to this because, I have a million things and sometimes you get overwhelmed and you don't know where to start. What are your techniques to sort of start on that path so that you can really organize yourself and have a good balance?
Yeah, I think something fundamental is your mapping yourself, your DNA. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is three categories: what you're uniquely great at, what you're good at, and what you're crap at. And so I use a tool, a psychometric assessment, that doesn't work on competency like millions of them, but that one works on appetence, the pleasure of doing things. And so if you take the analogy of Lionel Messi, a super soccer star and whatever, so he's uniquely great at kicking a ball. But
Mm-hmm.
not every ball, maybe not basketball or volleyball, but he's probably good at other sports things. He's probably a good golfer, a good swimmer because he's an athlete, right? But not uniquely great at soccer. And then he's probably crap at number. And so if you know that about yourself and you know that instinctively and after a few, but seeing it crystal clear is the first thing. So because then the question is, what do you do more of that flow
Mm.
to your talent? Because if you flow to your talent, it will be the joy, it will be you're most likely to achieve and excel. And then who needs to complement you and what are their talent map? And that's you build the engine in the room. The second tool is then the hit list and the shit list. So, which is what is the stuff that's urgent, important, but critical? What is the stuff that you need to really keep and do more of, and that you plan ahead for the put a frequency, put a recurrence, put it in your schedule. If it's half a day or twice a week, 2 hours, and block it for the next 100 years in your schedule. And that's the stuff you do not touch. There might be fire in the building that leaves in, so someone else will quench the fire or whatever. But so, and then you put the half important stuff and put it also for the next 100 years. And if it
Mm.
starts feeling too busy, then you need to let go. What will you delegate and how to whom? And then
Mm-hmm.
you need to put the time for buffers, the time for all the crazy things you have to do every day, but that you don't plan, but that are there anyway. So is that an hour? Is that 90 minutes? Put it in. And then if there's space left, feel free to do something else. And
Mm-hmm.
if there's no space left, well, is that part of the stuff that nobody's going to die if you don't do it?
Yeah.
And if you feel someone is going to die, but then it's not in the right category. And so it's kind of a penny drop moment. And actually, is it the stuff you're great at? And is it the stuff that's going to move the needle? And if it's no for both, then just let it be. There's a
Mm-hmm.
Dutch saying that says opgelost door het laten liggen. What it means is it will sort itself out if you let it to carry dust long enough. So life will
Yeah.
take care of this. So it sounds like easy principles, but coaching is also the space of accountability to say, hang on, can I call you on this? Does it actually make sense? Does it have to be?
Yeah.
You say, well, maybe not. Okay, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to challenge you on that. What happens if, I have a huge list of things to do and, let's say 80% of it is really important and there's 20% that isn't, but that 20% I can't delegate because I don't have the resources and I don't have the finances to do that. What do I do with it?
Yeah, good point. Then it's about realigning your priorities. So maybe play with time. Does it all have to be done by tomorrow morning? What can wait?
Mm,
Okay, you still have to do it, but is it today? Or can it wait to next Monday or to next month? And then what's the project critical where that's going to move the needle with the investor, with your next key partner on is it the absolute, is your product scoped correctly?
mm-hmm,
Is your MVP really the MVP, or are there too many whistles and bells? What are the whistles and bells that can actually wait or that you can kill? You thought it
mm-hmm.
was important, but is it? And so if you can't question the task list, because it still needs to happen, question the time, question the priorities, and then actually we re-question the essence of these tasks. And then if you can't delegate, or delegate to AI, delegate to there's a million now tools for founders for stuff that can organize your time, organize your stuff, organize. I use AI for coaching, for deep strategic thinking. I force the
Mm,
AI to go down the rabbit hole that I want, and by dancing with it and so on, and I use it in many ways. And then there's millions of apps and things in tech, and so there are solutions. Just it's
mm.
the art of finding the needle in the haystack.
Yeah, for sure. Where do you see people get stuck in this process the most?
I see them getting stuck with busyness. And so at the end of the productive day, as in productive defined by I've been super busy, I've had 20 meetings and 100 phone calls, and I had 10 coffees, and I feel hyped, and surely we've done lots of good work. And so they have that dopamine sense. And I said, what did you do that moved the needle today? And then there's a bit of a silence. And I said, well, busyness doesn't solve everything. So,
Mm,
so what is the one or two things that you should have? And so the question is every week, if you look over your shoulder, what is the one or two things that did actually move the needle? Can you
mm,
show me that you have meaningful momentum over the last week, over the last month? If not, okay, no problem. But what will you do next week? And in order to
mm,
get that done, what needs to give way? And so the biggest trap is being on the hamster wheel and feeling that sense of, wow, we're active, we're busy, we're conquering the world, but are you?
mm.
Because where's your space of getting perspective? Where's your space to be challenged? Where is your space to work on the business? And if you don't have that space, go get it. Find a mentor, a coach, go meditation, go whatever helps you. Listen to a podcast.
Yeah, and even to your point, AI can even help you with that. You can use AI to do a little bit of your coaching if you don't have the funds to, get a full-time business coach, right?
Yeah,
So,
I've got
yeah.
complete severe ADHD, and so I can't get to a certain task. Take me forever. I drop it into. I'm doing simple agentic AI, so like building GPTs on top of and things like that. But
Yeah.
that work on flows, on analysis, on leadership development, on whatever. And once you've spent a couple of hours doing that, it's amazing what it's like having 10 PAs in the room, but the PAs of the grade of Harvard graduate BCG people, which is amazing.
Yeah. I do the same thing. For founders often think the problem is sales, product, or funding. What diagnostic questions do you use to uncover the actual constraints that are blocking growth?
Yeah, good one. It's quizzing in. So I always start from the market, from the product. So what is the problem you're trying to solve? How are you solving us? What is your USP? What's your value proposition? What are you
Mm,
solving for? And if you can't say it in 5 words, that's where we start. Because if you say it in 100 slides and or half a page, it's your vanilla ice cream, your commodity, and you doomed. So what is the one differential that you've got? Not just more
mm,
quality or slightly less cost, or we work harder, or we got a great talent, or we got a whatever. So that's more that's a lipstick on the pig. That's more of the same with a twist. It's not exciting. So if you're not differentiated, go work on that first. Then what it
mm,
means, because now that becomes your North Star, and from there we can say, okay, what's the funding we've got left? What's the runway? And so in what's missing from that core? What's not in
yeah.
that core that we can let go of or deprioritize? And then that speaks to your talent, to your revenue, and in your revenue, the best way to chase revenue is to have an amazing value proposition, because then it sells itself.
Hmm.
Then you find the right scaling levers, the right channels to market, the whatever. But when you work on all of that without the right approach or product, and without that being crystal clear, you're not. And so that's the first step for me, because when that's clear, then the next step is who's on your core team? That's engine on the room. Back to the core talent, back to the core talent of your team. Are there glaring gaps? Is that because it's running a race? What's
Mm-hmm.
the engine in the car?
Yeah.
If I've got these two aligned, and then we can talk a little bit about strategy and next step and so on and so on, and how to get there. But once these two, the North Star of the USP and then the engine in the room, the rest starts aligning more clearly. And then the runway, the stuff, the next round, whatever that starts to be more logically aligned.
As someone who builds across multiple companies, diagnosing myself is, I think, is the hardest part for me. What should founders ask themselves on a weekly basis to stay aligned?
Yeah. Is the North Star clear? Is the problem we're solving clear? So that's and maybe not to ask that every week because if you've sorted it, then it's good enough. It's great. But then what's the one thing that moves the needle this week? And
Mm,
then have your key categories, okay? Runway, a product, a market, revenue generation, and team. And in these key verticals or baskets, then then what's the one thing that where you move the needle? Okay, it
hmm.
doesn't have to be at great speed or low speed or whatever, but as long as you've got meaningful momentum
Hmm.
in the handful of key things that matter, then
How does
you're good to go.
procrastination fall into that?
Procrastination is a consequence of a couple of things. You've taken, because sometimes the bucket stops with you as the CEO, as the founder, and everyone that feels the stuff that they hate doing. They say, okay, okay, well, maybe the CEO will do it, huh? Because
Hmm.
they might not be on a 9 to 5 and they might be on long hours, but they're not the actual founder. And so sometimes you end up doing all the things that nobody else wants to do, or you think they're not going to do well, or rightly or wrongly. And so if it's not aligned to your great talent or to what you're good at, that's where procrastination, because the stuff that we hate doing, that irritates us, and we still feel we've got to do it out of a sense of bravado or just because it needs to get
Obligation.
done, obligation. But actually, you suck at it. Don't do it. Don't touch it. There's 100 don't. You're gonna procrastinate like hell because it's not your happy place. It feels
Yeah.
frustrating. You are irritated. So that's the first thing. So procrastination occurs when you try to do it's not meant for you. Find someone else that does it better than you.
Mm,
And the second place procrastination occurs is when you don't have clarity of what's going to move the needle on what the core plan. It's not about a beautiful deck with the investors and a beautiful revenue curve, and that's not the thing. It's
mm.
what's going to truly move the needle. And if you're clear on those steps, and actually, very few founders are clear on that. And I dare to say that 9 out of 10 can't show you their heat map with the 5 core things that needs to move this week and this month. They don't have that. They'll go back to the pitch deck or to the investor thing or to the Excel sheet or whatever, and that's not good enough.
A lot of founders struggle with go to market messaging and channels. What are the three go to market actions you have CEOs fix immediately when they're not growing?
Back to the USP. And then after your USP, it should be your fuller value proposition. How much does
Hmm.
it cost? What are your competitors? How does that differentiate? So it should be articulated correctly. For example, let's take a silly, simple example like a pizza. If it's delivered to your door hot, that's the cost. If it's cold, it's on me. That's clear, that's simple, and that builds confidence. But now, what about the core things? So the next thing is, do I have a kick-ass supply chain that ensures that the pizza will be there in 4 minutes, not five, and that's my buffer zone, so that I'll have not more than 5% of cold pizzas, which I'll end. Is it built in our pricing so that that 5% that will be at no cost? At a cost of 40% to the pizza times five, boom, it cost me 10 pizza, and so I can still live and it's priced in. So I'm going into a little bit of pricing details now, but the essence is, can I substantiate my USP with a well thought through, measurable value proposition that then also works for me? And I know that when I do, do that with this level of acceptance of quality. And so, what are the two, three core key ratios? Yeah. And then back to the market, it's about scaling levers for me. What's your ecosystem?
Mm,
What is your, where is your market? Who's gonna, so your most critical ratio is time, not money when you scale. So time is your one key lever that people don't tend to measure. It should be your first ratio on top of your finance playbook, time. And so on the concept of time, it's the concept of return on time. If I go push another sales team in this market, if I go and it's reframing the question. So, okay, if I don't want to hire another 100 people in the sales team, then who can? What is the ecosystem? Is it about
mm,
channels? Is it about partnerships? To who's got access to 1 million people in the database that they could communicate with? And how do I build a partnership? It's working smart for scale,
mhm.
and maybe I lose a bit of the margin and I lose a bit of a cut in the process, but can I get a return on time that's more efficient?
Got it. I want to switch gears a little bit on a point that you made. You talk about focusing on the 20% that drives 80% of results. How can a CEO identify that 20%? What's the exercise or filter they use?
It's back to the North Star. What are you trying to achieve in the key buckets? So if your USP is this, do you have the product to substantiate it? What are the core parts missing and what can wait? What is mission critical? So first define your core buckets: product, team, revenue generation, cost management. So list your core buckets.
Hmm.
Then in each core bucket, put a bit of a status quo where you're at. And then what are the next steps and are they mission critical? Are they important? Or are they nice to have?
Hmm.
And then take the top in each bucket and say, okay, what can I realistically do this week? Look at your schedule, look at what you can bump out of your schedule, look at what you needs to stay, and saying, okay, how much space do I really have? And so if I can then do one or two or three things, what can wait? And so putting it on paper helps
Yeah.
in the right order. And simply like that, I'd say just do that.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like you're saying really figure out your North Star. And once you have that, you have a guide to keep going in your journey, which I think is makes a lot of sense. You've scaled in Europe, North America, Asia, and Africa. What's one universal go-to-market principle that works everywhere and no one never translates across markets?
Yeah, I would say on the go-to-market, test early. Test early, have your MVP, and test super early, and so see what reacts, and if it bites, if it doesn't, and what's the key ratio out of 10 people, how many are keen, how many aren't so keen. So do that super early. Do the MVP of the MVP. Test the concept, then test the first, and then pilot, and then test your scaling lever. So early testing, super, super key. You can't do enough of that.
Mm,
One that doesn't go across markets is communication style.
mm,
Communication style can be super direct in the US, can be slightly more polite and direct in Europe, and in other, like in India, you need to go through relation, or in Africa, or Latin America, you need more relationship building and step by step. It's less brutal, it's less clinical, it's less technical. So if you miss on the culture,
mm.
then you won't scale. Yeah, and that's true for B2B and B2C, because
I've
B2B
seen,
is led by people anyway, so it's back to the
yeah.
same cultural realities.
Yeah, I've seen that in SaaS businesses a lot. So some things globalize beautifully and some don't. And some people don't realize that the communication is such a big uh, strategy when you're doing when you're looking to go into different countries. When growth stalls, strategy is rarely the real problem. Leadership is. What's one behavioral shift a leader must make if they actually want their company to scale?
If they're internally focused, if they're perfectionists, if they love to work on the engine, if there's all of that, you've got to be market facing. You've got to go and roll your sleeves and get out there and speak to your clients, speak to the market, speak to the you've got to go to the front line of your people facing clients. You've got to take these logs, these chatbots. You've got to analyze. You've got to throw it in AI and understand the pattern, understand where you're stuck on growth.
Mm,
And so you've got to look at your pipeline and what stage of pipeline are you stuck? Is it on lead generation? Is it on second meeting? Is it on proposal? Is it on closing? Is it certain teams performing? So you've got to go deep into the super quick feedback from the market, and you've got to forget that your baby is beautiful. I've seen founders, CTOs being absolutely clear where the competitor failed at bringing a new product on the market and they had to put it out. And so, because they're not emotionally involved with the competitor, and so they had an absolute clear mind. Now, the very same happens to them, and they find 100 excuses with the best of reasons as to no, it's not quite bad as that, and so on and so forth. Lots of excuses. And so, get over yourself, stop making excuses, go and talk with your clients, with your market, with your frontline people. Go answer the phone yourself. Go find out where are you
mm,
stuck and be
yeah.
super analytical and critical.
Do you think that some leaders resist changing like their own behaviors?
Only 99% of them.
Only 99%. Why is that?
Well, it's how we build as human species. We've learned that going out of the cave is dangerous, and you can get knocked by the lion, and so it's preservation. It's built in our DNA. So we're risk
Mm,
averse because it's a survival instinct that, and we have vertigo and fear of heights because it's a protection. So because we it tells us that hey, don't take that extra step, you'll fall 100 meters, and so that's ingrained in us for a good few millennia. And so,
mm,
and so some of us are a little bit less risk averse than others and so on, but generally change is something we're not looking forward to. And it feels extraordinarily comfy to be in our habits. But at the same time, what's also ingrained in us is the willingness to learn and the need to learn and discover, and that's that creative tension that we need to get right. And so it depends where you're at in your scaling, and so it's again playing to the talent that you've got on the team. So some are great at starting brainstorming and ideation and so on, but don't ask them to cross the T's and dot the I's in a mature fine-tuning process. Others are good to scale, other are great at maturity. So play with your like soccer team analogy of is it more of a defending game, fine-tuning, or is it more of an attacking game? And play your players
mm.
where you must. That's a key
Yeah.
key thing for success.
Yeah, I think that's a really good discovery exercise to go through. We're coming up on time, but before we wrap up, I want to ask you one last question. For founders listening right now who are stuck, what specific 30-day plan can they implement today to clarify their go-to-market, tighten decision making, and re-trigger growth?
I would say forget about the 30-day plan because for that you need to have already a clear analytical view of where you're. So start earlier than that. So
Mm,
sit down, take a white piece of paper, a blank sheet of paper, and put down again your key buckets and find out where you're stuck.
mm,
And listen to your gut feel. And don't do that at the office. Go in the forest. Go on a rooftop. Go whatever. Meditate or whatever. But take an undisturbed space. Take that blank sheet of paper, and just list the keywords, the key stuff where you feel you're stuck. And then
mm,
ask yourself why. Listen to your gut feel. Then get external feedback. Key team members, key partners, investors, board, whatever. 3 to 5 guys you trust.
mm,
Bounce your ideas against them. So get clarity. And from there on, once you've got clarity on the 3 to 5 things where you're stuck, Now get your core team together and say, okay, guys, is this where we're stuck? Boom, what shall we do about it? Now you get to a 30-day plan or what next week, next month, key things and so on and so forth. But first, clarity is of the essence. And again, many founders don't have that. They're too much on the hamster wheel.
Well, Loic, thanks so much for joining me today. I learned a lot from you, and I hope our audience enjoys this as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Sonia. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
I want to thank Loic for joining me today and for being so generous with the exact tools and frameworks he uses with CEOs around the world. His approach proves that growth isn't about doing more, it's about deciding better, sharp focusing, and having the courage to face real constraints. And that's a wrap. Thank you for joining me on this journey of learning and growth. If this episode resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with someone who's building through a challenge right now. You can also connect with us on social media and be part of a community that believes resilience is the real advantage. Remember, growth isn't linear, success isn't guaranteed, and setbacks are part of the process. What matters is how you execute. This is Sonia signing off, but as always, keep chasing your dreams with tenacity.